Here is the new Christmas in July 2022 release. I am so excited. It's a small one, but it's got a lot of amazing products in it and super versatile stamps, as well as some really great new Lunar Paste mediums and some new color additions that I think are just must-haves. So let's quickly run through everything and then we'll get into samples and then we're going to get right into crafting. And hopefully we're going to be able to make a couple of different projects during today's live. So let's talk about new colors of Lunar Paste. I thought that these colors were so important to release, especially during this kind of Christmas time, Christmas in July. I think they're so much fun and they're going to be amazing for your Christmas projects. So first off, we have Game Over. Check out that shine. Of course, when it's tilted not in the light, it's more of a reddish kind of dark cranberry color. And then when you tilt it in the light, you get all of that amazing cranberry color kind of shine, which is just gorgeous. I love Game Over. And then, of course, we have Fake Plant. Fake Plant is just this darker green. It's super rich. It's going to be great for evergreens and things like that. And then, of course, when you tilt in the light, you get all of that amazing bright green shine on there. And honestly, I didn't even compare these colors to any of the others on swatch sheets. They really aren't similar at all. I'll be able to kind of show some of the tops of the bottles that I've swatched, and you guys will really see that these are just so different from anything else that we've released. And then last but not least, we have Midnight Snack, one of my absolute favorites. Of course, when it's not in the light, it's this nice dark midnight color. And then when you tilt it in the light, you get this gorgeous navy shine, which is just beautiful. It's so stunning. It's so cool when you tilt these Lunar Pastes in the light, how they really change color and give a whole new light to the colors. Now, I also wanted to quickly share, because I've never really pointed this out in the past lives, that all of these Lunar Pastes, of course, coordinate with a color of ink pad. So Midnight Snack will coordinate with your Midnight Snack ink pad. Of course, we then have Fake Plant, which is going to coordinate really beautifully with your Fake Plant ink pad. And then last but not least, we've got Game Over, which is going to coordinate beautifully with your Game Over ink pad. And the really awesome part about these is we color match based on like whichever way they're tilted. So of course there's a million colors in this no matter how you're going to tilt it, but when you blend these out, they're going to really nicely complement the colors. But if you have it tilted one way, it might not match perfectly, it might contrast the color, and then when you tilt it in the light, you're going to be able to really easily kind of match those colors, and they're going to look absolutely beautiful with all the different colors of ink pads. So it's more of a matching, and at some point they're going to contrast when they're a little bit darker, and then when you bring them in the light, they're going to really match just beautifully. So I wanted to also go over how the Lunar Paste match, because I do get a couple questions about that every once in a while, asking kind of how do they coordinate if there's so many kind of colors and shine in each one. All right, now I just want to quickly cover Lunar Paste as a medium, because of course if you haven't purchased Lunar Paste or looked at it or seen it in action before, this is a really great time to do that. So I want to first share on a piece of black cardstock. I just have a scrap of black cardstock here that I want to quickly share how Lunar Paste is going to look. So of course I'm going to grab out one of my Simon Hurley Create tools from the Paste tool set. It's just the palette knife tool, which I really love. And I'm going to go in with, let's do Sweater Weather. I love this one. It's supposed to be a Christmas stencil. We released it during Christmas, I believe 2 years ago. And it's one of my favorites. It's just a great geometric pattern that works beautifully. So let's take a look at the Lunar Paste. I think I'm going to use, let's do Game Over right now. All right, so when it comes to Lunar Paste, you're gonna see right away in the jar, it's quite a thick paste, but it's also got a really creamy consistency to it, right? It's not like normal texture pastes where it's kind of thick, it's hard to get through, right? This is super creamy, super buttery, but it's still going to hold all that amazing texture, which is one thing I love about it. It's easy to spread, super easy to work with, but you're still gonna get all of the amazing texture that you would with any other paste. Then you can go right through the stencil and spread it right through super easily. And you're going to get a beautiful color. And then of course you can put any of the excess back in the jar. Just quickly kind of sharing how this is going to work through a stencil. And check that out. So again, all of that texture holds. One of the really important things for me about Lunar Paste was I didn't want it seeping underneath the stencil. So of course it's going to hold all of the lines and textures of that stencil, and you're going to get just this beautiful and stunning pattern throughout it, which is amazing. All right, now let me just go in here and quickly clean this off. All that you need to do when cleaning off the Lunar Paste is just go in with a rag or a paper towel. Usually I use a paper towel just because it's going to kind of act like a paint and become a little bit hard when it's dry. So you want to make sure to clean this off of anything while it's still wet. And then once it's nice and clean, you can return it back to its storage. And then of course, we'll put away any of the excess paste and then wipe off any of the excess off to the side. All right, so that is kind of how to use Lunar Paste. Of course, normally with a palette knife through a stencil, and this is how a lot of people use their paste, but you can also go in with a finger and just go straight to the surface. This is one of my favorite ways to use it. Now, of course, you could use a blending sponge, a blending foam to do this as well. That's how a lot of people like to do it. If they're not doing super precision work, of course, you can blend out an easy background with a sponge. I just do it really quickly and easily with my finger, and it works just beautifully. And once you've applied that color down, you can go in. I'm just going to quickly heat set this. And Lunar Paste is heat stable if you're going to kind of need to heat it up with a heat tool if you're a little impatient. That was another important thing to me. But then look, once it's dry, the shine really comes to life. Like, it is so much shinier once it's all nice and dry like this, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. So Lunar Paste really comes to life once it's dry, and it's just so stunning. And then check that out. So just a couple of seconds, it's completely dry. It's got a really nice fast dry time to it, so that it's going to work really quickly, and then you can move on to the next part of your project. All right, now I also wanted to quickly share, these are some Lunar Paste projects that I've created. This is using some Altenew embossing folders. Of course, that's not the point of today's release, but I wanted to quickly share it because I was able to just go in with my finger and rub on some of the Lunar Paste and check out how beautiful and shiny this is. This is using a variety of all of the amazing colors of Lunar Paste. So I just wanted to share this. The embossing folders can be just gorgeous to kind of rub on with your finger and catch all of the amazing texture with that color and shine from your Lunar Paste. So don't forget about embossing folders or different textures that you can get because they're just beautiful. And one other thing that I wanted to talk about is when it comes to Lunar Paste, each one is made using a different color powder in it, and that is how we get the colors there. So it's not a dye, which means that when it shines on these color cardstocks, it's giving you that color shine. It's not a white sort of shine since you've tinted it. It really is that beautiful blue shine, the green, the red, and you can see all the colors rather than just seeing an iridescence to them. So it was really important that we created using those different powders so that it worked just beautifully and really stood out on the black cardstock. All right, you guys, so those are the 3 new colors of Lunar Paste. I'm so incredibly excited to have these now in my collection, to be able to work with them in front of all of you guys, and it really adds a lot to the collection, whether you're working on holiday projects or you just want some darker tones to go along in with all of the amazing bright tones that we have. These are going to work beautifully for you. All right, so one thing I also wanted to talk about quickly before we get into the rest of the video is just my storage. I wanted to quickly talk about what kind of storage that I use for these Lunar Paste. So I've of course added the new colors right back into here. You can see we've got lots of labels on top, which I still need to finish labeling the rest of them, but you can see, you know, there's no colors that are similar to what we released today. And then in the back of the storage container, I've put this little kind of divider section, this extra little bin, and this is where I have my tool sets. So these are my paste tool sets. It comes with 2 scrapers in the set, and then also 1 palette knife. And I just opened up a couple of these sets because it's great to have all of these tools on hand while you're creating. And the reason why I wanted to show you guys this is because I like to have these kind of larger plastic bins whenever I'm storing something. So of course I can then keep all of my lunar pastes in here. But instead of having all of my tools to use along with my lunar paste somewhere on the other side of my craft room, I like to keep it kind of in the same bin, of course keeping, other plastic bins in here to hold it. But it really is helpful to just be able to grab a color of lunar paste, grab my tool, and start working with it. And be able to, if I'm working with lunar paste, kind of bring this onto my desk and start working, but then also be able to really easily have everything that I need on hand when I'm creating. So this is what I like to do. If you guys want to see kind of a more in-depth look at some of my storage systems, I can definitely share them, but it's something that's really simple to do to just keep all of your tools together and really nice and neatly organized so that if I need something, it's really easy for me to grab and start working along with. All right, so that is my storage for the lunar paste, and now let's get into the stamps. So the first stamp that I wanted to share is called Evergreens. This is a really great peel apart stamp. As you guys know, with peel apart stamps in the past, we've had some peel apart stamps that have stripes out of them, and then we've had some that have designs out of them. For Evergreens, I wanted 2 stripes. So we have this stripe right here of these trees and the one that's right above it. The trees are just a little bit different on each one, so that if you want to use either one, you totally can. You can also kind of shift them to use them down on a card, but it's helpful to have 2 different stripes of them. And then also, you've got these little trees. So each one of the 3 trees are peel apart backgrounds, and these are really great to be able to use separately if you want to create different scenes. One thing that I also love about these strips is that they're bendable. You can kind of bend your peel apart stamps, and let me show you guys how. It's a little bit hard to do in midair, but when you have your acrylic black, so this is the large Simon Hurley Create Acrylic Black. We just released it, and it's one of my favorite tools to use along with the larger stamping foam, but also along with these peel apart background stamps. And the really awesome part is you can kind of stick down one end of the peel apart stamp, and then you can kind of start curving it from there, and you can get some really great kind of curvature to your stamp just using that. So if you want to kind of create a hill like this, you totally can with your trees. You can also kind of go in and create something like this, where it's got a little bit of a hill to it, but they can kind of be sledding down it if you're using the penguins. So there's lots of amazing different options when you do this. I just do want to say that once you're done, immediately kind of lift up your stamp and then place it on your desk and kind of help bend and return it back to its original shape. That way, don't leave it on your acrylic block for too long because you don't want it kind of learning and remembering that shape in the foam. You just kind of want to use it like that and then place it back to its original straighter shape. All right, but that is one thing I love about those red rubber stamps is they're just so versatile when they have those peel aparts. Because they're a little bit thinner, it's a lot easier to kind of bend and create different backgrounds using the rubber stamps. And then of course, when it comes to returning back the stamps to their original places, they really do fit in super easily just like a puzzle, and then all you need to do is add a little bit of pressure and they'll slide right in. And if you're having trouble kind of getting a stamp in fully, you just need to bend it a little bit and it'll return back to its position. All right, you guys, so that is Evergreens. I love the Evergreen stamp. I cannot wait to see what you guys do with this one. Blanca says these are her absolute favorite stamps because there's literally like 6 different ways to use them because there's so many stamps in one, which is definitely one of my favorite parts about these peel aparts. I always say you're pretty much getting a stamp set along with your background stamp for the same price, which is really exciting. All right, so let's move on into the next one. This one is called Berries and Branches. It's a really awesome peel apart stamp because what you get is you actually get all of these different branches, and I'm not sure if I'm going to peel apart every single one of these, but you guys can kind of see with all the different cutouts. You get one of those, you get one of the little berries, and then you get a bunch of the different shapes of branches. And there are some little repeats, but the reason being is because they're flipped. So with this one, you get it going to the right side there, and here you get it going to the left side there. So I'm not going to peel apart all of those so you guys don't have to see all of me puzzling it back together to use it as one regular stamp. But of course you can puzzle it back together if you want to use the whole stamp, or you can use the branches separately. And I thought these were just so much fun. To me, it kind of reminds me of tree trimmings, kind of little branches from your tree of the pine kind of falling on the floor. And this was made using a little brush tool. So you really get all of that tiny, amazing little detail on there. Throughout all of these little stamps, there is a bunch of detail. I love it. I love this one. I think this would be, someone in the comments said pair that up with Gina K's wreath maker, which would make some amazing wreaths. I think that would just be so stunning and beautiful with the wreaths and berries. And then also, I think it would work just really beautifully as a background by itself. I've been loving kind of stamping this tone on tone, but then of course, yeah, creating your own wreaths and things can be just beautiful. All right. And in fact, I honestly didn't even think about creating my own wreaths. And now that you guys are mentioning that, it's really gonna be a fun idea to kind of create a whole video around that. All right, so Polar Penguins is the clear photopolymer stamp set in this release. And I am, needless to say, so excited about it. So we've got a bunch of different little penguins. We've got two that are kind of hugging each other. They're so excited. We got one with a banner here, and then inside the banner you can either put merry or happy, and then underneath him you can also put Christmas or holidays, so that it can say Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. I love that those work together and kind of fit in there. Then we've got a little guy with a present, two of them that are sledding, and then a couple in some really happy little poses there and dressed up. And then of course you have a couple different little accessories like gifts and a hat, and then also some little trees to put around them and use with them. And then you've got a little iceberg and a little igloo. I'm a little not cultured right now on my penguin language. I'm forgetting some of these words, but yeah, an iceberg and an igloo, and then we've got some sentiments. So I love the sentiment that says it's penguining to look a lot like Christmas. We have waddling by to say hi, dashing through the snow, I love chilling with you, have an ice day, sending holiday hugs, have a super cool Christmas, let it snow, sending smiles, and love you. And whenever it comes to these sets, I always like to make sure that you guys have a mix of kind of generic sentiments and some holiday sentiments, or just kind of some generic winter sentiments so you can use them kind of all year round through those cold seasons. I also like to make sure that we're putting sentiments in here that you would really send on a card. Sometimes I see sentiments that I'm like, I really wouldn't send that. So we really spend a lot of time making sure that these are sendable, usable on your cards, and that every single one you're going to be able to use on one of your projects at least. So I love this set so much. It's been super versatile and fun for me to play with. And I'm just, yeah, like you guys are saying, I'm obsessed with these penguins. They are just adorable, and using them on cards has just been so much fun. All right, now let's get into some of the card samples. I want to share them with you quickly here. I don't have a ton of samples, but I am going to create a couple of cards with you guys today as well. So, a couple of quick little samples here. So I used the circle cut stamping foam, and I just used the outside of the circle cut stamping foam along with berries and branches to get all of that amazing detail there. And then I went in with a couple of blues, stamped that down. I blended the center with a little bit of yellow, and then I used these adorable little penguins and the sentiment that says, it's penguining to look a lot like Christmas. I just love how this set turned out with so much texture and detail in that background. I think it's just beautiful, and it adds a lot of detail. Next, with this card, I used the evergreen stamp, but I didn't use it as a background stamp. I think that's so important to talk about and say that it is just so versatile to use it by itself if you want to. So here I used the 3 different clusters or 3 different rows of trees. I stamped them separately in different colors. I think this was minty fresh. We have a little bit of viper and then fake plant. And I went in and did kind of a swipe stamping technique. So that's why you see the almost lined texture that you get in them. And I'll probably share that in today's video too, because it's such a fun technique. Then I went in with these little penguins on a sled, and I placed that right on top after coloring it in, and used the sentiment that says dashing through the snow. I just love this one. It is so beautiful. So much fun. And yeah, it really is. It really looks like motion. Someone, Tracy just said in the comments, I love how you created the motion. With the scarf flying and then also the kind of texture that's in the trees, it almost pushes it this way and then that downward kind of motion there. I love it. It really is so adorable. All right, then with this one, I used the whole evergreens background all together. I went in and stamped that down with a bunch of different green colors of the ink pads. I used, I think, the same ones on that card of the greens, so a little bit of minty fresh. We have some fake plant and then some viper. I love all of the different tones of green. That's really important to me when it comes to my line, is creating different tones. So you've got kind of that icy blue, that more warm color, and then that more olivey tone there. It really works beautifully with Christmas cards to use them all. Then I went in with the handwritten Christmas. That was one of my older sets, but it's one of my favorite. It's got some beautiful handwritten sentiments, and believe it or not, I wrote that myself. And then in here on all those trees, I added some little berries. And to do that, I went in with the Game Over color, and I went in with Wendy Vecchi's Make Art Stylus. And I dipped it in the color, and then I dipped it right on my project there to get all of those different little berries on my trees. So that is how you can kind of achieve that effect with just the Lunar Paste. All right. And then, of course, last but not least, I made another card with the berries and branches. I heat embossed it and then did a green background. And then I went in with one of the penguins. I colored his little tummy yellow here on this one. And then I did the Merry Christmas in that banner. I love how that turns out. And then just put him on a little oval there to finish it off. So I love these fun card samples. They're really quick and easy. They're really adorable to create with these little penguins. And I absolutely love how it all turned out. All right. So I've already prepared some of the images that I wanted to use for today's cards. I've stamped down an igloo that I want to use on one of the card backgrounds, and then I've also stamped down a bunch of the penguins that I can use during today's video. So I'll kind of share how to color some of these in, and then we will also get to creating some of these cards. So for the first card that I want to create, I'm using this little igloo on the center of my card. I've already stamped this down using black ink, and I've clear heat embossed it, simply because we know that I love clear heat embossing. So then with this, all I'm going to do is go in using a little bit of Gina K's Masking Magic. I just want to use a little bit of masking paper, so this is going to be absolutely perfect for me. All I need to do is grab a piece of the Masking Magic, and then we can go in with our stamp set. So I'm going to grab my polar penguins, and I'm going to grab this same exact image. Just grabbing my igloo image, and then you can pick that up, and we'll stamp it down using some of the jet black archival ink. We don't need a perfect image here. I'm just lightly tapping the ink on, and then I'm going to stamp it down. And like I said, no need to be perfect. It's on just a piece of masking paper. All we need to make sure of is that we've got the generic outline there, and that's all that really matters. So I'm going to heat set this just to make sure that it's completely dry. Last thing we want to do is just smear a little bit of black ink on there. Hey, Kathy Zilski. All right, and then I'm going to go in with my Fiskars Spring Assist scissors, and I'm just going to go in and cut this out. Now, when I cut it out, I want to make sure that I'm just using one line. And you guys are gonna see, because I'm gonna use both sides of this mask, I'm not just kind of going all around all willy-nilly. I want to make sure that both sides are usable, hopefully, so that everything is going to be really easy to color in using just inks. So once we've got this all cut out, here's the reason why I cut only with one line going in. Because when we stick this down, we can either use the inside of the igloo or the actual igloo to mask the outside. So I wanted both of these so that I can use this to then blend a little bit of gray on the inside of the igloo. So I hope that makes sense now why I only cut one line, because look, it's really easy to just put that back together and then start my blending. All right. So I'm gonna go in with the masking magic. And let's see, there's a little tab up here. There's a couple of cuts in the back of the masking paper, which make it a little bit, hopefully, easier to remove that backing paper. All right, and then all we have to do is just line it up with the edge. And place it down. All right, that's perfect. Things are coming along well. A little bit of a slow start, but you guys are gonna see it's gonna turn out beautiful. All right, so now we want a little bit of masking using some mint tape. And the reason why I'm gonna do this is because I want to mask off what the horizon would be. And I think it would be right there because the igloo is gonna be kind of circular. So this front part is gonna come over the line, and then this is gonna be right on the line. Did I do that right? Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's go in then with a little bit of woof, which is my lighter gray color. And I'm just going to go in with my light gray and then tap off any of the excess. And then I'll bring this color in right on the edge. And I want to make it look like ice. So basically, when you're trying to make anything look like white ice, you want to go in with a little bit of gray. And the reasoning is because anything that's white is going to have a little bit of shadow and dimension to it. So you always want to use a little bit of gray to bring it to life and give it a little bit of dimension there. So I'm just going in. I was a little heavy-handed right there. So I'm going to bring in a little bit more on this side and then bring it all the way down on our card. Awesome. And you know what? I think with this, I'm going to lift this off. All right, and then we want to just, I shouldn't have made that harsh of a line. We want to add a little bit more ink inside there because we're not going to add the color inside there because it's the inside. All right. Now then, we're going to go in with our tape once again, but this time, we're going to tape off this half. So we're taping off so that we can blend above. And also, I'm going to use a little bit of extra tape that we've already put down and just mask off the inside of that igloo so that we can create a sky. Now with this, there's a lot of different options you can do here. You could do a bunch of different blues, but I think I want like a sunset looking background because those always just turn out so beautiful. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in with a little bit of actually we're going to start off with a little bit of Over the Moon. Right at the bottom here. I love this color. It's just this gorgeous kind of light yellow. Almost buttery kind of color. Blend that out. Love that. And then we'll go in with a little bit of rosy cheeks and bring that pink in. And it's going to blend together just beautifully there. And then again, on the other side. I'll bring a little pink in there as well. And on top of the masking magic, it's going to make that little bit of a noise. All right. And then I'm going to bring in a little bit of a darker pink as well. Here we're going to go in with some Prom Queen. just to intensify that. This is like by far my favorite way to blend a sunset. All right. And then I'll bring in a little bit of triple berry, still in kind of the warm tones. And I'll bring in some purple. I'm really layering up a lot of color here. And then last but not least, I'll go in, well, actually not last but not least. I'm gonna go in with a little bit of Crown Me next. And this is where we're gonna start bringing in kind of the more blue tones at the top. So we've got that one, and then I'll bring in Midnight Snack, which is just this gorgeous royal blue color. It's what we released in the Lunar Paste. Check that out. All right. That is like always my favorite blend. And then if you want to, you can go in with a tiny bit of water if you want to add a little star looking texture, because my inks react beautifully with water. And so that little bit of water on there is just going to give some texture and kind of intensify that background. All right. So let's lift this off. Oh, I love it. Love, love, love. All right, and then to lift this off and check that out. I told you guys it's completely worth masking off an image like this, because you are going to have it completely white after you've done your whole beautiful background, and I love how that looks. I'm gonna heat set this just for a second. All right, I love how this guy is looking so far. Now I want to go in, and I do want to mention one quick thing. So here is one really helpful example. So this is my Stark White cardstock. And now let me quickly just all right, I'm gonna grab a piece of cardstock. Now this is the cardstock that I used to use before I had Stark White cardstock. I tested so many cardstocks before this one, and here is the only reason we were able to blend on so many colors and get such a beautiful blend. I mean, you saw the ink like sitting on the surface, but it was sinking in because this is such an absorbent cardstock. There's no coating on it, there's nothing like that. All right. And so this is why I love my cardstock so much. So this one's mine, and then this one is the cardstock that I used to use. And first, let's start off by just saying it's a lot brighter of a white. But then also, when it comes to adding color on, this is why it's really helpful. All right? So we're going to go in first on this cardstock. You're going to see that is Midnight Snack. Check out the label compared to that. I mean, it's doing pretty well. But then if we go in with more color, it's not really layering up. It's giving you that color, but it's not really layering up too well. And then when you go in on here, because there's kind of this coating and you added so much ink on here, when you go in, you're gonna get fingerprints all over your project. And that's one thing that I noticed about cardstocks like this and why people were using like sticky notes. It's because the cardstock doesn't absorb the ink fully, so that's why you're leaving your fingerprints. Whereas when you go in on this dark white cardstock, you can of course just go just as light as you were on the other cardstock and get such a nice smooth blend anyways. But then also you can go in and literally add as many layers as you want to get such a super dark and intense color, which you really can't do on every other cardstock. So check that out. I mean, it's just such a rich and intense color there. It really doesn't compare. Check that out. And it sinks right in. So like you're not gonna get any bleeding or any lifting of that color off of the surface, which is really amazing. That's why I love the cardstock. Now, let's keep moving on to the rest of the card. All right. And you can find that all. Everything is going to be linked on the link that's pinned on the screen. So if you guys are in the chat right now, there's a link that's pinned. You can check that out for all of the different supplies. All right, so when it comes now to doing the igloo, I still do want to add a little bit of shading to that. And this is where this mask is going to come in handy. So I'm going to go right in with this guy. Peel off the backing. And this is where I said it was really important to keep it all intact, because when you line it up, you just want to line up all the edges and then place it down. And there we go. And then you can go in with a little bit of woof. And here, instead of blending all over, I'm just going to go in from one of the edges and blend that in. And then we'll go in from the other edge. And blend that in. And the reason why we leave the center highlighted like that is because when we lift that off, it gives it this circular look. If you highlight, or if you shade both edges and leave the center highlighted, it's almost like leaving a little highlight in the center of a balloon. It's gonna give you this really beautiful circular look, almost domed, and it leaves it really gorgeous. All right, so let's see, what kind of penguin do we want in front of this? I think I'm gonna do this little guy. I really like him for the front of that house. For the front of my little igloo. All right, so when it comes to coloring in these little penguins, thank goodness we just released the neutrals last month, because shady is such an amazing, almost black color for these penguins. And I wouldn't want to color them black anyway, because black, I feel like, really takes away a lot of the depth that you can give an image. So that's why I love using just these. All right, then I'm gonna go in with a little bit of traffic cone and a little bit of the warmer orange guppy. And I'll also go in with a little bit of rosy cheeks. All right, so I'm gonna add a little bit of water down onto my surface. If you guys know me, you know that I love adding water down on the surface instead of in a cup, because I'll spill it otherwise, to be frank. So I'm gonna go in here, and I always like to start off my watercoloring with adding down a layer of water to the section that I'm about to color. It really is going to help you out. So if you struggle with watercolor, be sure to do this first. Otherwise, I find that the color sinks in right away, and you don't get enough time to go in and have some time blending it around. So that's why adding the water down is really super helpful at the beginning. And then you can go in with the first layer of your color. So here I'm using shady, and I've added a little bit of water to it as well to kind of dilute the color just a little bit. And we'll go to the top and paint the outside edge there too. Super simple to do. All right, and then With the second layer, we can go in with a lot less water and go in and add our shading. So here you can see the color is a lot darker. And you can add it to different sections. So I'm going to add it to right underneath his scarf, right there, under his arm. It's going to add lots of dimension. And then I'll add a little bit here above his scarf as well. All right. Then I'll add some right in between his beak. And you guys can see this is what I'm talking about, where you can really add lots of shading and dimension with the gray shady color. Whereas if you just had a black color, you wouldn't be able to add all that dimension. So that's why if you pick up one of these penguin sets, and you might want to grab a little bit of shady as well, because it really is super helpful. All right, so next I'm going to go in, and for his little stomach, I'm going to just go in again with some water for starters. Then I'll bring in some more water, and then a little bit of gray. And then blend that right out into the white. And I'll do the same thing up top. All right. Now we're almost done with this little guy. I'm going to add his little feet with some traffic cone. I always like to add a little bit of guppy to his beak. I like the kind of warmer color up there, and then the little feet to have that little orange. And then we're going to go in with just a little bit of rosy cheeks to add just the tiniest little touch of pink to his cheeks while that area is still wet, and it just kind of brings it to life a little bit. All right, now notice we didn't paint his scarf. It may or may not be because we're going to bring in Lunar Paste to do that. So I've got a little bit of Game Over and a little bit of Fake Plant. And I'm just going to bring in one of my brushes that I was just using. This is just one of the Ranger Artist brushes. I really love them. And I'll just go in to these little areas and add this Lunar Paste. And this is a really great way to add Lunar Paste into smaller little details. It's really easy to stay inside the lines, especially when they're clear heat embossed like this, because it almost will resist the Lunar Paste then. But it still adds all of that amazing color that you're used to and that shine that you're used to when you use Lunar Pastes. So worth just spending a little bit of extra time to go in and do some little details like this. It's a little bit more tedious, but it really does make a huge difference. When you're making a card, it's all of the little details that really count. All right, and then when you are going to clean out your brush, you can either take this guy under a sink and make sure it's super clean, and make sure you've got all of your paste out of it, because like I said earlier, when this paste dries, it does harden, so you want to make sure, just like any other paint, that you're not going to ruin your brush, so you want to make sure you just clean it out as soon as you can before it dries. All right, so now I'm just going in using a little green fake plant and finishing off all of the little areas. And let me know in the comments right now if you guys would do this little detail work or would you skip it? I think it's kind of fun and therapeutic to paint these little areas, and it just turns out so adorable in the end. All right. Now let me lift this guy up for you to see. I want to kind of dry that little bit of Lunar Paste first. Check that out. It's just got a nice amount of shine to it, especially in person. You've got a nice shine to his scarf, and then it just brings that bold color in there as well. Everyone is saying they totally would do the details. Yeah, I think the details really make all of this count. It's just fun to go in and do all those little things. All right, so then again, fussy cutting with our spring assist scissors. And I like to just leave a little bit of a white border, especially because like the background that we just did is quite a bit busy. So going in and fussy cutting and leaving that white border is gonna help make sure that people know that this is a focal point, and it really makes you look at it on your card, which is always what you want. So that's why I leave the little white border. Of course, if you want to, you can cut around it without the white border, but I think it's kind of helpful for a finished card. All right, and then let's see. I think it's gonna be super cute, like right there. That's just adorable. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's trim this down. I'm gonna just trim it 1/4 of an inch. And then we'll bring out a card base. And add it down. All right. And then when it comes to this little guy, I'm gonna pop it up on some foam tape. So I'll just grab a little bit of 3M foam tape and pop this little guy up. That is so adorable. All right, now to finish it off, I am gonna grab my Misty stamping tool so that we can get this sentiment and make sure that it's absolutely perfect when it's stamped down. And what are we gonna do? Oh, I think it's penguining to look a lot like Christmas. We could do like sending holiday hugs too, because he looks like he's hugging, but I think this is a great sentiment. It's nice and large, and it'll go perfect down in this open area. All right, and the reason why I love the Misty is because I can look in that grid right there and make sure that things are lined up and nice and straight. And then I can also, if I need to, if I want to make it look darker, double stamp that down. Oh my gosh. You guys, it may have taken a little bit longer than normal, and there may have been some tedious steps, but check out how adorable this is. I'm telling you, those penguins, They've got a way to my heart. They are so adorable. I love it. So this is the card we created together today. I hope you guys enjoyed doing it as well, but we're not quite done yet. I still do want to share one more technique. So I want to share how I stamped those trees because I think that was such a fun one, super important, and I'll probably share it in a future video as well. But all you're going to need to do is peel out one section of those trees, and then of course, grab your acrylic block. You can line it up with those grid lines to make sure that you're nice and centered. And this acrylic block is just perfectly 6 inches across. So there's like pretty much no overhang when it comes to these stamps, which is really awesome. We sized it just perfectly to fit all of these backgrounds when you peel them apart like this, so that if you want to stamp sections of your backgrounds, it's really easy to do so. So the next thing that we can do when stamping is we will go in with our ink pads. All right, and I'm gonna start off with a little bit of Minty Fresh. I don't use this one enough, but I love the color Minty Fresh. And I'm just going to go in and check out what I'm doing. All you do is just take your ink pad and you just swipe it along the surface. It's weird, but it gives you this textured to your stamping. Then all you need to do is go in. I'm going to stamp it at this little bit of an angle that I did on my example card as well. Stamp that down and check it out. Now, I don't know why the texture didn't show as well. Maybe I waited a little bit too long. Let's do a second one. So with the second one, I'm going in with Viper. All right, and I'm just going to do that exact same thing with that texture. Here, I'm going to go in, maybe do it a little bit quicker, and stamp that down. It's not giving me as much texture as it did the first time. I mean, it still has some. We're using a little bit of fake plant. And maybe this time I'll give a little bit less pressure. There we go. A little bit more texture there. So that is how I did those trees. It was really super simple to do. It really is, and it just brings them to life so nicely there. And then of course, you can create a background there. You can stamp the trees straight across and put the penguins just right down in the center. So it really does give some great movement and some amazing texture. There still is a lot of texture in these trees that I stamped today. I think I was overreacting a little bit, but the swiping technique is just such a fun way to stamp that down and get the amazing texture. But I really did want to focus kind of on that tree line, because with some of the other images that we've done in rows like this, it's been images that are like, you know, we had the circles, some more geometric kind of looks, some more abstract type patterns. But with this, with it being trees, you can really build a lot of different scenes using the trees. And I think a lot of people don't think of that, so I did want to just share, you know, you can take it and split it apart and bend it and really twist it to show exactly what you want to do with the trees. All right, you guys. So that is the look at today's launch. I hope you guys really enjoyed seeing both the card projects that we created and also all of the amazing different products that released today during today's live stream. I hope you really enjoyed it. And again, be sure to check out the link and go shopping at Ranger if you're interested in any of the products that we shared during today's live stream. I think you guys are going to absolutely love them.